Good day and welcome to this report. I am focusing today on a critical story unfolding in the European Union, one that goes right to the heart of Europe's energy future and its fundamental laws. I am providing this in depth, long form analysis because the news reports you see on this topic are often short, leaving out the crucial legal and geopolitical context that makes this story important. And for those of you who need the key facts now, and for those who are just settling in, here is the essential summary of the conflict we'll be breaking down. The story centers on the European Union to push completely ban Russian gas imports by the end of 2027 as part of its effort to fund the war in Ukraine and secure its own energy independence. This seemingly straightforward goal has triggered a severe constitutional clash between Brussels and two key member states, Hungary and Slovakia. The conflict revolves entirely around one question, which is how must this ban be legally adopted? Brussels' view is that the European Commission is treating the ban as a trade measure, which allows it to be adopted by a qualified majority vote. This move intentionally bypasses the veto of any single nation. Hungary's view is that Hungary, backed by Slovakia, vehemently argues that the ban is in fact an aggressive political sanction against Russia. Under EU law, sanctions require anonymous approval, meaning both nations believe they should have the power to veto the entire decision. Hungary has announced it is prepared to take the EU to the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg, and I am going to analyze what this legal challenge means and the risks posed to Hungary's long-term gas contracts and the critical precedent this dispute sets for the future power balance between EU institutions and sovereign member states. In Luxembourg, October 20, 2025, a deep rift is widening among European Union member states over a Brussels proposal aiming to gradually halt Russian gas imports. The dispute is not merely about energy policy, it is a fundamental legal and constitutional conflict concerning the interpretation of the EU's decision-making mechanisms. The European Commission seeks to eliminate Russian energy dependency by the end of 2027, but this move has faced stiff oppositions from member states heavily reliant on Russian pipeline gas, particularly Hungary and Slovakia. The tension escalated when Mr. Péter Szijjártó, Hungary's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, announced on the sidelines of the Energy Council meeting in Luxembourg that Hungary is contemplating legal action before the European Court of Justice if the ban is enforced. The minister asserts that the measure violates the EU treaties, arguing that its real content constitutes a sanction, not a trade measure. The legal crux of the dispute stems from the different decision-making rules outlined in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. Decisions made within the framework of the common foreign and security policy, such as sanctions against Russia, require anonymity under the treaties, granting every member state a veto right. Mr. Szijjártó and the Hungarian government contend that the primary political goal of the gas import ban is to impede Russia's war in funding, clearly aligning it with the definition of a sanction. A strategic restriction to this nature, they argue, cannot be adopted by circumventing Hungary's veto. According to Budapest, enforcing the ban this way would be a big scandal and a clear violation of the European Union Treaty. Conversely, the European Commission and the supporting member states, led by the Danish Council presidency, rely on a fundamentally different legal basis. They classify the measure as a general trade measure aimed at ensuring the proper functioning of the internal energy market, supply security, and diversification. Dan Jorgensen, the Energy Commissioner, confirmed that the proposal's legal basis is quite clear, adding that Russia has demonstrated it is not a reliable trading partner. This legal classification allows the regulation to be adopted by a qualified majority in the Council, which means requiring at least 15 member states representing 65% of the EU's total population. This maneuver effectively bypasses the vetoes of Hungary and Slovakia. Lars Agard, the Danish energy minister, emphasized that the legal question had been answered by the Council's legal service and that if dissenting countries have the resources to do something in the legal system, they are welcome to do so. The opposition from Hungary and Slovakia is fundamentally driven by their acute energy dependence. Both are landlocked countries for whom replacing Russian pipeline gas poses the most significant challenge, unlike coastal states with existing or developing liquefied natural gas terminals. Hungary maintains a long term contract with Gazprom signed in 2021 and running until 2036, with gas supplied via the southern Turk Stream pipeline. Mr. Siarto has repeatedly stressed that Russian gas supply is critical to national energy security and existing infrastructure cannot fully compensate for its loss. The government argues that a forced rapid switch of sources mandated by the EU would increase utility costs for Hungarian families. Similarly, Slovakia strictly opposes the measure and is demanding the EU guarantees against economic repercussions. Bratislava's primary concern revolves around the termination of its own long term Gazprom contract, which remains valid until 2034. The potential ban introduces a significant legal risk of severe financial penalties should Russia pursue legal action against importers for early contract dissolution. The Commission suggests that the regulation provides a legal foundation for terminating contracts without penalty by invoking the principle of force majeure, an extraordinary event preventing the fulfillment of a contract. However, legal analysts suggest this interpretation is contentious as the war has been ongoing for some time and courts may rule that buyers should have prepared, thereby rejecting the force majeure claim. Slovakia has consequently demanded EU assurance against higher prices and legal liabilities, while the Commission has categorically ruled out financial compensation. The current conflict is an integral part of the broader Power EU plan launched in 2022 to achieve the EU's full energy independence from Russia by the end of 2027. The agreement by energy ministers establishes a legally binding plan for the phased elimination of Russian gas imports. New contracts for Russian gas will be prohibited starting in January 1st, 2026. Existing short term contracts must be terminated by mid June 2026. The most critical aspects involves long term contracts, which must be phased out by the maximum deadline of January 1st, 2028. Landlocked member states like Hungary and Slovakia have been granted a period until the end of 2027 for a gradual phase out. But the Commission emphasizes that this phased approach is essential to stabilize energy prices and mitigate supply risks. Member states are required to submit national diversification plans by the end of 2025, detailing the timeline and measures for replacing Russian gas and enhancing their energy security. Hungary's threat of legal action will likely lead the dispute directly to the European Court of Justice, where judges will have to decide the legitimacy of the regulation's legal basis. The Hungarian government can file an action for annulment under the Article 263, arguing that the Commission exceeded its legislative competence by basing a measure with the content of a political sanction on the legal provisions of the internal market, thereby circumventing the anonymity rule. If the ECJ, European Court of Justice, rules in favor of the Hungarian position, the regulation would be annulled, forcing the Commission to attempt to adopt the gas ban under the CFCP framework, where Hungary's veto would prevail. However, if the ECJ sides with the Commission, it will set a crucial precedent by confirming Brussels' ability to use the qualified majority to adopt strategic decisions vital for the EU's economic security, effectively overcoming the political paralysis caused by a single member state's veto. This ruling would have immense significance for the EU's future crisis management mechanisms and define the limits of member state sovereignty versus common EU objectives. The application of the qualified majority rule in the gas ban debate underscores the EU institutions' willingness to seek new legal avenues to bypass political deadlocks and rapidly achieve full energy independence from Russia.